your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan, and have an interesting program today. I think you're going to find this, I think, fascinating from the standpoint of our guest. The first half of his gripping and honest memoir, God Doesn't Relapse. You got that? God Doesn't Relapse, released, actually it'll be released later in 2026. Basically, it reveals the story of a selfish, entitled, lying, cheating, manipulating, unfaithful, abusive. Wait a minute. That's not Matt. Matt, welcome to the program. That's not you, is it? Come on.
Hey, thank you for letting me, thank you for having me on your show. That's who I used to be.
Ah, good point. Very good point. I'm going, wait a minute. I know a few people in history that would match most of those, and I can't believe it. And boy, you lay it out there saying, this is the guy I was. Let's talk about, you have a website called mattgrace.com, mattgrace.com. And we hope folks will check out the book as well, which is God Doesn't Relapse. One of the things that was brought to my attention, Matt, in regards to addictions in particular, is that addictions are not about that which the addicted is addicted to. It's not about the substance or the life that they're living that they're addicted to. Because even you may not be addicted to a substance, but you could be a workaholic in particular, using that term. They said in this one program I was in, when I was interviewing this person about the same subject, they said it's a lack of connection to others. What are your thoughts in that regard? Do you think that that is a fair assessment, or maybe they've missed the boat in that well, that sounds great, but really it is the substance, it is the pills, the drugs, the alcohol, the whatever.
Oh, I believe in connection 100%. So, when you take the drugs and alcohol away, if I don't replace it with something else, I'm not going to stay sober. And for me, that was early on, I learned that the two most significant things that help me and help people who I know who have long-term sobriety are people who have purpose and connection and have established some form of prayer life or higher power.
Mm. So your book is coming from a faith-based perspective. Is that correct? Even for that matter, maybe I almost said AAA. AA?
Well, no, so I did get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, but my book is really it's not a religious book.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, I outlay multiple stories of how atheists and agnostics stay sober while not going to a 12-step program. So it really is a bevy of different stories, which I'm trying to inspire people because um, our country has become more secular over time
Hmm.
since the 1930s. And so I know there's a lot of atheists and agnostics who struggle with the concept of God. And one of the things that you talk about connection, one of the things that I'm most passionate about is service. It's connectivity to something bigger than myself. And I've seen people with bipolar disorder who have been chronic relapsers get service positions and now have long-term sobriety, meaning 5+ years, and their disposition has changed dramatically. So people have seen a major. Now, they're not stopping their medication. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Hmm.
saying to whatever it is that you're holding on to, if you add service, it's an addition. I'm not looking to subtract anything. It's just an additional layer of protection.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, I'm a person of faith. I consider myself more of a metaphysician, one who is studying that which is beyond the physical, which is basically how I was raised, Roman Catholic in particular. And yeah, they had a lot of stuff in the material world, in the churches and what have you, but it was about that life that we are not permanently in that we're not here forever. We're here for only, I put it this way, we're here for like a puff of smoke, if that long. um and I would actually consider myself more of a an agnostic metaphysician. I know what I believe, but I don't know beyond a shadow of a doubt. I would not pass the jury instructions in a court of law of where you've got to get beyond a reasonable doubt. Couldn't go there because I don't know. All I know is what I've seen on print in paper, on paper or on the internet, or the people I've spoken with and interviewed. But as far as many of the questions that you and I might have, I can't say for any certainty. And a matter of fact, I was given a wonderful quote back when I was in my 20s. I'm now in my late 60s. And it says, begin in doubt and end in certainty rather than beginning in certainty and ending in doubt. And I'm wondering if maybe that's where the people that you're talking about, the agnostics and the atheists and so forth, who I have found to be in some instances, maybe even more spiritually grounded than some people who claim to be people of faith, regardless of what the philosophy is. What are your thoughts?
Well, so I have a couple of examples. So
Hmm.
I know a man who is as far away from God as I am close to him.
Hmm.
He's been clean for 33 years. He has been taking a meeting into a treatment center twice a month for 33 years. So he's the type of guy who would give you the shirt off of his back. And so you talk about connection. I believe that it is his connection to other people and that dedication to service which has given him purpose and spared his life.
Mm.
Now there's another gentleman who I have worked with who was a former client who his program is the exact opposite of what mine looks like. I pray every morning, he doesn't pray at all. I go to meetings, he does not go to meetings. But what happened is there was a major shift in his behavior. So instead of being selfish and talking to other women, he became dedicated to his wife. He is an excellent father to his two young children. He comes home every day after work to spend time with them, and he has a dedication to a workout routine that is quite something. He wakes up every day at 5:30 a.m. and works out. His workout routine is it's incredible
Mm.
and to stick to something like that. So his routine is his higher power.
Yeah. We're talking with Matt Grace. MattGrace.com's the website, and his book, his memoir, if you will, a gripping and honest memoir, God Doesn't Relapse, available later this year in 2026 as we continue talking with him here on Tell Me Your Story. This whole conversation regarding addiction, regarding getting stuck in whatever it is that we are addicted to, whether it's work or a substance, and sometimes addicted to certain kinds of relationships. You know, we keep, I'm sure you've heard this before in many instances where, why do I keep choosing the same gal or the same guy every single time who just doesn't respect me and doesn't treat me in this, that, and the other way? It just seems like, and yet they keep going forward with those kinds of relationships or with the different types of addictions and whatnot. One of the thoughts that occurred to me too, when you were just sharing there a few moments ago, and especially when it comes to the title of your book, God Doesn't Relapse, we were created in the image and likeness thereof, right? And if that's the case, and in a manner of speaking, it's actually been phrased, I've heard it this way, that we're sort of like little holograms of the divine, of God, right? And that we have the kingdom of God within us. We're not separate. So I then ask the question, how is it that if God doesn't relapse, how do we tap into that helps us to stay focused on what is important? I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things already, and obviously some examples of other people. What can you share with us, especially in regards to maybe what you've shared in your book, God Doesn't Relapse, in regards to not, as the phrase goes, not falling off the wagon, because God doesn't fall off the wagon, as it were.
So I've been sober for 21 years and I have 10,000 hours of in-field experience working with families and addicts themselves.
Hmm.
And so what I've seen over the past 21 years are more external solutions, vis-a-vis Vivitrol, Anabuse, which has been around for a while,
Hmm.
Sublocade, which is new, Suboxone, all these external solutions for an internal job. And the
Mm.
reason why I say God doesn't relapse is because I know so many people who tried Suboxone and were absolutely miserable and still empty on the inside.
Mm.
So you could say that they were still alive, but were they really living?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not telling people to stop taking their medically assisted treatment. That's not what I'm saying. My experience is if you are facing a chronic illness, the death of a child, one of my best friends, his son was brutally murdered, financial ruin, a horrible divorce. If you think that Anabuse and Suboxone will save you from that, I think you're sorely mistaken. And
Mm.
me personally, when I had 16 years of sobriety, I became extremely ill, right? So this is a lesson of I had 16 years of sobriety, everything was going wonderfully in my life, and I got COVID and I became extremely ill and eventually almost couldn't walk. Uh, I was told I might end up in a wheelchair, and I spent at least 4 to 5 months bedridden. I wasn't able to go to meetings. It's been 5 years post-COVID, and I still can't play golf. All the things that I like to do in life were stripped from me. And then what do? Right? So people say scuba diving is my higher power, or yoga retreats are my higher power, or but what happens when you become bedridden with a chronic illness? I pushed all my chips in because I wanted to die. I was chronic pain. I didn't want to take opiates, and I doubled down and I said to myself, if I kill myself, what kind of example am I going to show newcomers that I just checked out because times got tough?
Hmm.
I wanted to be an example that you can go through anything. And for me, it was a belief in something, right? I don't know what God is, but I know that my life was spared. And I can tell you that the only thing standing between me and a drink was some form of power when I had a chronic illness.
Mm. What about the phrase, and there are people out there that they live by this particular phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I wonder how we can juxtapose that to this concept, and it's more than a concept, I know, of miraculous transformation. I believe that, once again, I believe, I don't know this, but I believe this, that when Jesus was telling his disciples that he could teach them how to do all of the what they perceived as miraculous things like turning water into wine and raising the dead and healing the sick and so forth, he said, I can teach you that too, but you guys are going to go on to do greater works. And my belief is those greater works are transforming our lives and helping others to transform theirs. So, what about that? I'll call it the juxtaposition between, so to speak, learning how to do that, transform your life, versus just taking the position, hey, if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger.
So my book is raw. I think it's a little jarring for people because I had so many problems starting off in pre-kindergarten.
Hmm.
By the time I was 6 years old, the school therapist told my parents that she thought I could end up to be a criminal and end up in jail by the time I was 6. So if anybody needed some kind of spiritual shift, I needed a personality change and a spiritual shift when I was in kindergarten.
Wow.
I wasn't, um, when you're a kid, you don't know about spiritual transformation. I was looking in the mirror and thinking, what's wrong with me? But I was cruel, unforgiving, but I was in a tremendous amount of pain. And I felt like life was passing me by, even at a young age. And then you just add drugs and alcohol with a lot of other uh, felonies, and by the grace of God that I didn't get in more trouble. Um, it's just adding fuel to the fire.
Hmm.
So essentially, I believe that all the pain that I experienced was meant for me to harness and try to help other people uh, to find a relationship with a higher power and give them hope that they can live a sober life as well. So I believe that everything in my life has been predestined and that pain is necessary. And pain is necessary because that's where growth comes from.
Mm. Sex, drugs, and the life that almost killed me. Did anybody ever throw up a bunch of, forgive the pun because the front of your book, that's what you did. You described that rather vividly. Um, did anybody ever throw up all of these different platitudes and so forth that just didn't seem to stick for you until you reach that certain point? As Robert Bly says in Iron John, he says we have to reach what's called our catabasis, or the bottoming out. We got to reach the bottom of the well before we can start working our way up. Um, do those kinds of things, in your opinion and your experience, really do they really help much? And if I was to start quoting all these different ones, are they really that helpful?
So, one of the themes in my book that I'm extremely passionate about is I use my own family as an example of what not to do. And I have their permission. And so I wrote the book to try to reach a broader audience because I believed, as someone who grew up entitled and spoiled and that the world owed me something, I'm trying to make the world a better place. And
Hmm.
so I'm trying to reach parents who might be enabling their children. I think the worst thing that you can do for your child is to destroy their ambition. And I had no boundaries. I had no rules. I used my dad like an ATM machine. I didn't understand the value of a dollar or respect hard work. And at the end of the day, it took, I burned every bridge in my family. I held my family hostage for 13 years, as you know, lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, but
Hmm.
most of all, wasting people's time. And finally, I came home on October 3rd, 2004. I'm sorry, October 2nd, 2004, from a 3-day crack and alcohol binge. I walked inside. My mother started sobbing and said, "Oh my God." And then she gathered herself and said, "If you're going to die, it's not going to be in this house. Get out. I'm changing the locks." My father also decided to cut me off. He finally listened to what everybody had been telling him for years. He'd been sweeping my addiction under the rug. And had my family not come together as one whole unit, I'd probably be dead. So uh, I'm sober, yes, because of deep-rooted spiritual pain, but I finally my family created a line and held the line.
Mm. How about today? Where are those relationships?
So sobriety gave me the two most precious things. One, when my father died, he had 11 years of sobriety, and nothing was left unsaid between us. And I was able to be, excuse me, I was able to be trusted to be around him with his pain pills because had I still been in active addiction, they would have padlocked the door for me not to get in.
Mm.
And to be present during my dad's last moments is the best gift I gave him and the best gift I gave myself. Secondly, my mother was just in a catastrophic car wreck in last September,
Mm.
and I've had to take over her finances. I've been taking care of her. I go over there every day, and she trusts me to write checks out of her checkbooks. And I actually, she's on Dilaudid, which is a very powerful medication because of the power, because of the foundation that I built with service and a relationship with a higher power. I can cut her Dilaudid tablets and give them to her and not be triggered whatsoever. So for me, the people who I used to hurt the most ended up becoming my best friends and the people who trusted me the most.
Mm. Wow. I have to say that you hear more stories about children who will reference their parents passing and they say, I wish I had said or done, and now it's too late. And of course I say it's never too late. I mean, yeah, the doing part, okay, but the speaking or the saying part, you can still talk to them. And I can honestly say that on the night before my father passed away, my wife and I called my mother, and she of course was there with him, and we were able to do video phone, not Zoom, but just video phone on our phones, and I was able to see him, and we spoke, and it wasn't one of those reconciliation kinds of things because over the years we'd always gotten along and spoke. Matter of fact, the year prior to his passing, my eldest sister passed, and we had there was this incident in the dining room of my parents' townhouse where my father came in and said, "Where's your brother Mike?" He's a younger brother, and I got cute because gas prices even back then were going up and so forth. And I jokingly said, because my brother's always the jokester, "Oh, I'm sorry, Dad, we had to sell him to pay for gas to put in the car." Oh, he was not happy. He said, "Look, when I ask a question, I want an answer," and so forth. And I said, I apologized. And I said, he's coming later with so and so. So there I am that night. I'm making up the bed on the couch because my brother got there before I did and he got the spare room. And my father comes into the living room, hunched over a little bit because the older folks have that question mark that's building, right? In their body, in their back. And he came in and he apologized for getting upset earlier. And I just turned to him and I said, "Dad, I love you and we're good and you will always be my father." And we
Mm.
hugged so that when we had that last conversation a year later on the phone, the video phone, he said how proud he was. He told me how much he loved me and my wife, Almrita, and all of those wonderful things that he had been saying for years over the phone and when we were still living in Phoenix or when we'd visit, which was wonderful. So I can honestly agree with you and say same thing. Nothing left unsaid as far as my father's concerned. And though my mother being 91, I'm hoping she lives a few more years, but I can honestly say the same thing about her if I were to get the call today. How important do you feel it is for the substance user? Because that's a term that I see in the information here. Uh, to reach a point where whether they get the trust and then the support of family and friends that they may, like you were describing, where you just used up all of that, it was gone, that they need to begin that process, even if they haven't gotten the help that they need at this point, just to go there and nothing more than maybe apologize, maybe say, I hope you can forgive me for the way I've been. I'm still working on it. I'm not there yet, but I wanted to get things squared away before that time came.
Well, so I'm definitely not a victim. I believe that I survived,
Hmm.
and I don't carry this victim mentality. And I think it's important with regarding family that my father made a lot of mistakes. I mean, he paid people to do my homework in high school. He paid people to do my homework in college. He introduced me to prostitutes and strippers, but it wasn't malicious,
Hmm.
right? He was trying to be my best friend and not my father. And it's important that in the beginning of the book, I say, Dad, this book is not an indictment of your failures. This is a testimony of what happens when you love someone too much.
Mm.
So I think it's extremely important to forgive the people who we resented and maybe have carried this heavy bag of resentments for years upon years. And at some point, as an adult, I have to be responsible for my own actions.
Mm.
And I could either sit in therapy for 10 years and point fingers, or I can look in the mirror and try to become the person that God wants me to be.
Matt Grace is my guest, and mattgrace.com is the website we will be linked to, so you can get a copy of his book, which is God Doesn't Relapse, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Matt Grace, my guest. Matt, I want to ask you in regards to your name, your last name in particular. It seems rather apropos that you have experienced an enormous amount of grace in your own life by virtue of the story you tell in your book.
100%. And, as I wrote this book and I'm doing podcasts and having to do social media, I really wanted to take a step back and recognize my friends who didn't make it. Because in the first line of my book, I say the first person I use drugs with is dead. The last person I use drugs with is dead. So why am I still here? And it's really only because of the grace and mercy of a loving God.
Mm.
And I feel like I have a tremendous amount of responsibility to because because I came from a life of privilege, born on third base and with a spoiled and entitled attitude. I take a tremendous amount of pride knowing that I was spared to serve and to be of service to others. So God's grace is all around me, and I'm not the most likable guy, especially in my childhood, right? In my story,
Hmm.
all of my friends were more likable than I was. And I'm not someone who you want to root for early on in my book, but I promise that there is a transformation that takes place. I just hope people don't become too turned off by the first part of the book.
Yeah, hang in there. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. It gets better. It gets better. There is a yellow brick road of sorts, if you will. I want to ask you, you mentioned forgiveness a little while ago. And you went through the process, obviously, of seeking forgiveness of those that you took advantage of, right?
Yes,
What about the forgiveness for yourself?
sure. Well, I started to forgive myself when I started, my mentor said something that's one of my favorite things. He said, if you want self-esteem, try doing esteemable things.
Ah.
So before I got sober, I wouldn't even shower with the lights on. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And physically, I was dying. Spiritually, I was already dead. And um, I started to forgive myself when I started to be of service. And I think that especially addicts and alcoholics need purpose in their life. And I think that the quickest way to forgiveness is to start doing something for someone else. Even
Hmm.
if I'm not personally thinking that I'm benefiting from this, someone else is benefiting from the time that I'm taking to give someone a ride, take someone's phone call, just to do something for a family member who I've hurt for 13 years. So for me, forgiveness of myself comes with action.
Mm. And you continue to do that in your life through what you referred to. You talk about service, and obviously thinking of not only a higher power but also of being a part of something that is bigger than yourself, and not specifically about a deity, but about being of service. I've got a friend. He is not an addict of any kind, although I sometimes wonder if his personality isn't a little on the addictive side for him. But he's loving his life, and that's really what's important. He goes to the food bank every Saturday. That's
Hmm.
just one of the things that he does to be of service to his community. Is that part of the process of finding something to do, not to occupy your time so you're not tempted by the addiction, but so that it, in a manner of speaking, sort of replaces it and says, this is much more important than anything that I might have been addicted to?
Yes. When I had 14 years of sobriety, my dad had been dead for a couple of years, and I found myself drifting. And I started trying to buy my happiness. I bought a new car, a new home, a watch, started traveling. I joined a country club. I started pursuing all the things that society tells us that we might feel better, and what makes us happy. And I found the exact opposite. I felt less connected. None of that stuff made me happy. 8 months later, I sold my car and I started volunteering at a shelter in Detroit where young girls went who were sex trafficked and abused, often by their own family members. And see what happens is, I think privileged people, I'm trying to inspire uh, people to come back, right? I think addicts are failing addicts or alcoholics are fa failing alcoholics. And what do I mean by that? Um, there's not enough of me with time trying to give back, and there's a lack of commitment from someone who's in a treatment center or who's trying to get sober. And there's nothing more powerful than one man helping someone else. So I'm trying to inspire new people to service, but this is a call to action for people who might have 25 years and have the family and all the promises have come back in their life, but for some reason they've stopped coming back. So men need help.
Hmm.
And charitable donations are wonderful, right? Without the checks, there is no charity. However, young men are facing a crisis in this country. And if you go to a morgue, 4 out of 5 suicides are young men. And
Mm.
young men have never been more isolated. So I am trying to inspire people to, you don't even have to be an addict, to try to be someone's mentor for 1 hour a month, 2 hours a month. My father used to be a big brother and tried to help someone who nobody in his family ever went to college. So my father helped him with his down payment for his first home. This
Hmm.
young man went to college, and then everybody after him, I think it was 6 siblings, graduated from college. So I'm trying to inspire more of that going on. And I know a lot of people who have a lot of stuff and are not happy as well. And so, service, as you know, doing something, I think anybody can relate that if you do something nice for someone else and you don't expect anything in return, everybody knows what that feels like, right? Everybody has done something nice for somebody at one time or another.
Hmm.
And um, the things that I thought that would make me happy did not. And when I recommitted myself to being of service, especially to people who are less fortunate than me.
Hmm.
And what happens to me, what fills my spirit is, when I had my private practice, I worked with high net worth families because the ancillary services in recovery are not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
And so I really am motivated by the places where I volunteer. I call them the forgotten ones.
Mm.
The ones the dregs that people would used to call back in the day.
Yeah.
And when I go into a treatment center and I see someone who does not have insurance and everything they own is in a bag, it gives me perspective. And I think a lot of people are great. Or I don't want to minimize people's trauma or whatever their story is, but a lot of people are lacking perspective right now. And there are people who are living paycheck to paycheck, And I mean, imagine trying to get sober with no family, no money. You're a felon. You don't have a driver's license. What do you do? So I have dedicated myself to try to help the men who are the most less, well, the less fortunate.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about something that actually there are two things that I want to bring up here, but I'll do that when we get back here because I want to remind you who are listening and watching. This is Tell Me Your Story. We're talking with Matt Grace. We're talking about his book, God Doesn't Relapse. You can go to mattgrace.com, which we are linked to as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. There are two words. One of them I learned was a dirty word when I worked for a Christian radio station back in the 80s and early 90s. It's not a four-letter word either. I have never even calculated how many letters are in it, but it's the word responsibility. And there is a passage in the Bible in the New Testament that says, "To whom much is given, much is expected." I paraphrase. And so, it's not like you can just keep accumulating and accumulating, accumulating without there being the reciprocal. It's like there can't be a giver unless there's a receiver, and there can't be a receiver unless there's a giver. That's just a universal mathematical truism. You can't escape it, and that God or the universe, however you want to phrase it, will extract from you that which is required because of all that you've been given. So I'm curious about your level, how you built up your level of responsibility for the life that you had lived, i.e., the first half of your book, God doesn't relapse, and where you are today. That as I've kind of put this analogy together that we are not puppets on a string being manipulated by forces we do not understand. We've been given this life, and this incredible mind talks about how we need to sit down and reason together in the Old Testament because we've been given this incredible ability. Talk to us a little bit about your progression from getting out of victimhood, because that's one of the things that I just absolutely abhor. I went through personal growth programs in the early 80s, and I played that game for a very, very short time because I won. I won the game because I don't play it anymore. I'm responsible. My book, for example, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, is all about making choices. Share with us your perspective on taking 100% personal responsibility for who you are, and where you've come from.
I, yes, it's very important that I surrounded myself with people who told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. So
Mhm.
one of the things I say is that I fired all the yes men in my life, including myself, and I stopped listening and taking advice from myself. And I started going to a meeting, a men's meeting, and I wanted what these men had. And I picked a mentor, and he was very direct with me. He wasn't mean, but he said that, this is what we're going to do. And if you don't want to do it, then that's fine, but don't waste my time. And uh, I'm grateful that God allowed me to listen to God, I believe, throws breadcrumbs and clues for me to either listen to or take or avoid and just ignore.
Mm.
And this person called me into his office. I had about 10 months of sobriety, and he said, "I want you to sit down." And I felt like I was coming back to the principal's office, which was very familiar, a very familiar thing for me. He said, "I want to know what you're giving back to this program that saved your life." And he said, "I want to know why you don't make coffee or you don't really do much." And as you know, alcoholics tend to be very sensitive. And one of the things I've seen happen over the past 21 years is when someone says something that might save my life, well, now I'm not their friend anymore because I'm so hypersensitive to my
Mhm.
feelings. that I can't push my sensitive little feelings aside and take someone's advice. And thank God that I left my ego in the parking lot. However, I became indignant and I said, "How dare you speak to me that way?" I told him to F off. I walked out of his office, but we reconnected 3 months later, and something profound had happened. I had called my an old drug dealer at 10 months, and she picked up the phone and said, "I just want to tell you, I think it's great that you're sober, and I'm so happy for you, and I'm here. I hear good things." And that was it for me. I knew that God was speaking through her, and I reconnected with my mentor. And that one conversation was all about responsibility. And he had the courage. Today, I think that we lack the courage to be confrontational. And when I say confrontational, there's a way to say it. I heard a speaker once say, "Do you mind if I mind your business?"
I like that.
And that's just a great way of saying, "Hey, I love you and I care about you. And I see things that are concerning to me and others." Right? And I think we've become so sensitive that I've tried very lightly and delicately uh, telling people that they need more responsibility, but they don't want to hear it, right? Everybody loves the truth until it's about them. Can I handle the truth about me, right? And my mentor said, "You're a taker, you've been a taker, and it's time to start giving back."
Hmm.
Now, you have to be in a special place or a certain place to receive a message like that. And so, because I was desperate and on death's door, I believe that the pain that I was experiencing made me willing to listen to people who knew how to live, re-enter society as functional human beings, and when my life was a catastrophe.
Mm, amazing. We're talking with Matt Grace, mattgrace.com, and the book is entitled, it's his memoir. If you get a copy of it and push through the first half of the book, okay? This is my advice. Just push on through. I mean, come on. If you sat through a movie, a drama, the first half to three quarters of the movie is usually really hard to take because it's just a lot of drama and trauma and all those kinds of things. So do the same thing here and push on through that book as we continue here. Pushing on through, tell me your story. Another area that I'd like to talk to you, Matt Grace, about is one that an addict usually gets to through their process, and it's I don't want to say necessarily that it's the end, but it certainly might be the beginning of the freedom from the addiction, and that's this concept of gratitude. Talk to us about where you are with that these days.
I think gratitude is a byproduct of working some kind of program. Because when I first came in, I had very little gratitude. But once I did restitution, once I started service, I had that, spiritual awakening as a result of getting on my knees. And I know that a lot of people struggle with the concept of prayer, but the one thing that, the things I said I'd never do are the things that saved my life. And I get on my knees every morning and every night. And I had a lot of old ideas about that, but being raised as a conservative Jewish person, Jewish people don't kneel. And the fact that I was so desperate and started to kneel on a daily basis built the foundation of my life. And so, one of my asks to people who might be struggling is, if you don't want to get on your knees, just try anything, right? Try any form of connection. You can talk to the shower, right? It does not have to look like my relationship with a higher power. And so that's really one of the things that I'm passionate about, is trying to reach people who struggle intertwining God into their program.
Mm. And what about those who um, like to be dogmatic and they're going to throw at you book, chapter, verse about what you should do, how you should do it, when you should do it, where you should do it, whatever it is? rather than allowing the individual, such as yourself, to find their own path. I've always found it frustrating during those early 15 years in my career where people would challenge me saying, I don't think you're saved. I don't think you're ready to meet God, and so on and so forth. And I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, weren't you the one that just said that my relationship with God, it's a personal relationship. It's a one-on-one. It's a dyad. It's not a trio. Okay. So it's almost along those lines of the person who said to you, do you mind if I mind your business? And I just sit there going, stop minding my business. This is my relationship, not yours, and I will be the one who will answer for my life at the end, not you. So take a hike. Talk to us about some of those folks. Did you run into a few of those who they wanted to tell you what you needed to do and how you needed to do it and how to play the game, so to speak, and what game to play?
Well, when I'm helping someone, you can really cut through the BS quickly. When someone comes to me and says, I don't believe in God, I say, hey, no problem. Why don't you just meet me at a meeting and we'll be a greeter together? Or why don't you come volunteer with me at a soup kitchen? One of the best things I ever heard is you don't need a spiritual experience to make a pot of coffee.
That's right.
And so then often I find then it's not about God. They just don't want to do anything, which
Yeah.
is fine, right? But we have to start having an honest conversation about the desire and willingness to stay sober. Listen, if you don't want to get sober, I have no problem with that because that was me, and I'm sure that was you, and millions of other people at some point in our life were just not done,
Mm,
right? And so I had someone say, "Oh, I don't want to do a 12-step program," and I say, "No problem. What do you want to do?" Just
yeah.
tell me what you want to do. You want to do Dharma? What do you want? He said, Oh, I want to try smart recovery. So I said, Okay, well, why don't you go to a Zoom? Because at this time during COVID, uh, well, there aren't a lot of smart meetings in person in this area, regardless.
Hmm.
But I said, go to do a Zoom meeting and tell me what you think of it. Well, that conversation took place 3 weeks in a row. So
Mm,
then we really understand, is it AA or is it smart or Dharma or do you just not because he never did any work whatsoever. And then what happened is that all the professionals told his family, don't let him back home.
yeah.
He stayed in his room 24 hours a day. So this is what I'm passionate about. He didn't want to do anything, and then his parents caved, right? No boundary, back home. And that's the real conversation that needs to take place right now in this country after, in my experience, is that if a family is going to recover, they have to recover together. Because the family also has to do work. Uh, Otherwise the person is coming back to the same toxic environment. So, is it really, um, is it AA? Is it therapy? Is it, what is it that you want to do? And then, and oftentimes, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. I'm curious. There are, as I mentioned at the front end of this program, there are all kinds of different addictions. And I kind of ask it this way: does it really make any difference what it is? Are substances more difficult for individuals? And I know this is an individual issue, obviously, but lifestyle or ways in which we're living, being a workaholic where you spend, or maybe it's a gambling addiction, that kind of thing, a non substance. Does it really make any difference what it is? An addiction is an addiction is an addiction. Arose by any other name.
Well, as I'm sure you understand, so the subtitle is Sex, Drugs, and the Life That Almost Killed Me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a sex addiction, which was, with drugs and alcohol, it's very black and white,
Mm-hmm.
right? You drink, you get pulled over, you're going to jail. Well, with porn and strip clubs and prostitution, yes, you can get arrested and you can get an STD, but you can you can get away with that. If you come home, you're not going to smell of alcohol.
Right.
You're not using drugs, so there's no fentanyl. and not yet on strippers, at least to my knowledge. But it's the same void. It's the same malady within. So as you know, a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics just replace other addictions. They replace drugs and alcohol with gambling, sex, food, codependency, debtors anonymous, right? There's hundreds of 12-step programs. And I can tell you, as someone who struggled mightily with pornography, and the two men who I looked up to the most, who I admired and idolized as a young man, introduced me to prostitutes. And so
Mm,
it normalized that behavior,
yeah.
right? And so, um, during COVID, I started watching a lot of pornography, and I found it to be just as spiritually desolate as drinking and drugging because it hits the same receptors in your brain, just in a different way. And it can have devastating effects. And so what I did was, okay, if someone's watching 3 hours of porn a day, right? Let's not rip the whole Band-Aid. Why don't you go do service for 1 hour a day, right? Go do something. Take a
Hmm.
walk. Start with something small. Get a new therapist if that's not working for you. Maybe someone who specializes in sex addiction or gambling addiction or whatever it is that you're abusing, and commit to something for 1 hour because that's 1 hour where you're not on a computer or a casino and you're not obsessed with self, right? Because that's what addiction is self-obsession. Whether you think it's taking the pain away or dealing with the trauma or just because I like how it lights me up, my my answer is always going to be service and serving others.
Mm.
Because when you go do something for someone else, I don't care what is going on in your life, you will start to feel better, right? If you do small engagements and build upon those and stick to that routine, there will be a transformation within you. And I don't care if it's gambling, drugs, alcohol, food. Uh, Service saved my life, and I believe that service can be someone's higher power who really is, tying back the title, someone who really doesn't want to walk with God or know God, then just get out of yourself and go help someone else.
That's very good advice. And I would venture gender doesn't matter. It all of what we've talked about on this program today affects men as much or women as much as it does men. And the challenges are all the same.
Absolutely. Women shopping. Uh, I don't know about gambling for women. I think that's mostly men. From the studies I've seen, that there's a higher suicide rate among, gambling addicts than drug addicts. So gambling is just as devastating. But yes, a malady is a malady. And that's why the title God Doesn't Relapse is because, I'm trying to tell people that when you're facing another addiction or some kind of crisis, if you think that you know an abuse or and again, I'm not calling out medically assisted treatment. I'm just saying when the SHIT hits the fan,
Hmm.
right? The people who have faith in something fare better than the people who have no faith at all. And that is really what's going to bolster and support the lowest moments of your life.
Yeah. Another addiction, and I don't know why I didn't think of this before, that a lot of folks tend to have problems with. We've seen it over the decades. I remember the first example of this kind of addiction was when we heard the stories coming out of, I believe it was out of Guyana in the 70s with Jim Jones.
Mm,
And then we've had other situations with David Koresh and Hale Bop. And then there are accusations of others that are more mainstream. I won't mention them per se, but we have an issue with people who are followers. The phrase sheeple, is
mhm.
used in many instances. That people, for whatever reason, it appears they cannot think for themselves, that they only repeat what they have been told because they want to belong to a group. Now, I became a Baha'i in the early 1990s for about a year and a half.
A what?
A Baha'i. The
Okay.
founder of the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah. He was the one who founded the faith. And matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but Seals and Croft, the musical group, they are Baha'is, and a lot of their music speaks to the messages that were given. And the thing that I loved about it was that they accepted me. Now, I asked a lot of questions, just like I do here on this program, to the point where I even asked them, I said, okay, you want me to read his writings, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But what about if I want to read the writings of someone else? I said, hey, go for it. And I didn't feel after the year and a half that I could make that final step that they wanted me to make. All right. That would then bring me into the fold 100%. I was probably there 95%. And I had learned a lot. And I loved being around these people and reading the materials. And when I went to them and said, I would like to step back, I can't do this. They said, fine, we'll take you off our mailing list, and so on and so forth. I've never heard from them again. Whereas when I went to become a member of the Baha'i faith, I went to the parish rectory to give a letter to them saying I would like to have my name removed from the Catholic roll, right? And their response was, we'll put it in your file. To which I said, and I did say this out loud to, I says, you and the FBI have a file on me? I just thought that was really funny. But it is an issue that we deal with not just in this country but around the world, where in one sense people give up their personal responsibility for their lives. They turn it over to someone else along with everything that they may own, all of their money, their worldly possessions, maybe even their offspring or their partners and so forth. It's like they just surrender. Now, within Christianity, there is an element of surrender, but it's not that kind of surrender. It's a surrender to that higher power. Can you talk a little bit about that, or is there no difference in those kinds of scenarios than a substance or a lifestyle like gambling or sex and so forth?
Uh, are you saying what's the difference between a cult and
If we
following a
want to
higher
use the
power?
word, yeah, if we want to use the word cult, they firmly believe in what they're being told and
Yeah,
so
because
forth.
Jonestown, I mean that's the epitome of a cult, I guess. But
Yeah.
you know, I think, well, for me, nobody's really tried to micromanage my life. I think that's the great thing about now, since I've been online, I've heard, various different stories about uh, people in 12-step programs trying to control other people and to shame people. And, you know, I can't deny that that's someone's experience, but my experience has been totally different.
Hmm.
Nobody has told me to go anywhere or come anywhere or do anything, outside of step work. Nobody has, I've never been told really what to do outside of my mentor who saw that I was going down a slippery slope, who pulled me aside and said, I think you need more service. Outside of that, I have been free to pursue my own beliefs. And I'm passionate about helping other people find their beliefs while not pushing my own beliefs on anybody else. I never do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because I have talked about medically assisted treatment. If someone comes to me and asks me for help and they're on Suboxone, I never turn them away,
Hmm.
right? That's not my first choice, but I have, in my 21 years, I've started to become more open-minded to different ideas. And I think that if someone comes to me and says, this is where I am, as long as they're not abusing drugs and alcohol and committing crimes and, um, being a degenerate and like me, the ex-degenerate, I will be of service to anybody, anywhere, anytime. So I think that that's what my book is about. I share other people's stories that are very inspirational, and because it's not just about me, right? It's about what are other people doing, right? I talked about people who don't pray, they don't go to meetings, but there was a major shift in their behavior. And so if that's therapy for somebody, or if that's whatever methodology that they want to use that's working for them, but I always come back to getting on my knees, having a white light spiritual experience, and doing service are the most profound things that have ever shaped my life.
Mm.
And like I said, I was born on third base, so I was privileged. I'm still privileged, and millions of dollars will not protect you from a relapse. If you think that money is going to fill your soul and your spirit and is going to give you some peace. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a capitalist, and I think that money is important for security and health insurance and all different kinds of things, especially for children and your family. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that when in my most dire and darkest moments with illness and self-doubt, my higher power was on deck to see me through that. And the people who I'm sure you know, people with 20, 30, 40 years of sobriety,
Hmm.
those guys and those women are in the trenches. Whether it's a soup kitchen or a 12-step meeting, or they are on the firing line. And so I'm just asking people to try something different. You know, if something's not working, try hitting your knees. If you don't want to hit your knees, try to go be of service to something or somebody. It's, you know what, it's you don't need $100,000 to build a relationship with God,
Mm-mm.
right? You
Yeah.
don't, right? It's there's this whole thing in the treatment center industry. It's like if you do this and do that, the way that I put it is, treatment centers close, therapists retire, but God is always open for business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would not even go so far as to say that it doesn't cost $100,000 to have a relationship with God. By the same token, it's not free because you have to make a commitment. You have to make a choice in that regard. So keep that in mind as we continue talking here with Matt Grace, mattgrace.com, the website, and God Doesn't Relapse here on Tell Me Your Story. Matt Grace, my guest. Matt, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights into all of this. This was a lot of fun. I can't believe it's already been an hour that we've gone through, and I thank you so much for being a part of the work that we're doing here, trying to, as you are doing the same thing, trying to change the world for the better for everybody. It's possible. I am an optimist, and I'm willing to go out on that limb. Okay, because if we don't dream big, then we won't have big dreams that come true.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on your show. It was an honor and a privilege. And anytime I get to someone asks me to speak, I was taught to never say no and to be of service.
I'm with you there, and I never say no. I don't like to say no to guests of different subjects and topics and so forth. I try to keep it focused as much as I can, and this was one of those that is very focused on what it is that we're trying to do is help people to, in a manner of speak, get unstuck, to take that transformational step. Or steps, whatever the case might be. So, once again, thank you. I have three final questions I ask all of my guests that I will ask you. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're also on YouTube and Rumble. We're looking for some additional video platforms to post our program, Tell Me Your Story. We hope you'll subscribe and also click notification. Please go to Amazon.com to pick up a copy of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And if you can help us out financially, we would be so gratefully appreciative. We have a tip jar. It's called PayPal. And you go to PayPal, put in my email address, richard@richarddugan.com, and then send it on to us. We'll be gratefully appreciative. We thank you, thank you, thank you for those who have helped in the past and those who will help down the road. We will take energetic support as well. So thank you for being a part of the work that we're doing here. And finally, once again, an area that we didn't really get into directly. But finally, one of the things that we encourage you to do during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, we ask you to spend some time going within, on your knees or not. Okay, doesn't matter, to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice and follow the promptings as well. The still small voice will never put you in harm's way. It will challenge you as it has me in my lifetime. So hope you will do that. And with all that being said, we ask you now to stay with us as we ask our final three questions of our very special guest. And the first of those three questions, I see Matt is starting to tense up a little bit, going, oh my God, is this going to be like voting? The first of those three questions is, who is Matt Grace?
Matt Grace is someone who is eternally grateful that I get to breathe God's air every day and I get to be of service and I get to take care of my mother and I'm not a liar or a cheat or a manipulator anymore. And I'm someone who is trying to make a world a better place instead of thinking that the world owes me something. I think my attitude is that I will never be able to repay the world what this world has given me.
Mm, wonderful. What gets you up in the morning?
Well, one of the first things I do is I either, as I'm sure many people do, I try not to reach for my cell phone, but usually it's the first thing I do. But after that, it's really to take 5 to 10 minutes and spend some quiet time with my higher power.
Mm,
That's how I start the day. And that's really what grounds me. And I notice that when I don't do that, it impacts me severely.
mm. I know that every morning my phone is right by my bedside there on the nightstand, and I start to reach for it and I might even grab it, but I then turn the face down and I thank you, thank you, thank you for letting me wake up again this morning and so forth. And I try to do that for as long as I can. And then, of course, I'll then dive into it. So I hear you there. Final question. What was your best day?
My best day was when I was able to show up for my father's funeral sober.
Mm, wow.
And what I do now is every year on my anniversary, I go to Florida and I take my token and I put it on his headstone out of respect.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Matt, we thank you for being a part of Tell Me Your Story, and we continue to wish you much success, not only in in your sobriety, but also in the work that you are doing through your book, which is God Doesn't Relapse, available through Amazon. I'm sure they can get it through mattgrace.com. And thank you again. And we thank you folks for being a part of Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to all. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.